So what are the risks that emanate when, or are inherent in the transaction when you're lending in foreign currency? In my view, there are three, unless there's another risk I'm missing out. So there's credit risk, which is there for any kind of lending that you do, isn't it? Yeah? The risk that the counterparty that you're lending money to will default, okay? So that's risk number one. Risk number two is the currency issue. Yeah? The fluctuation in interest in exchange rates, that poses a major challenge when you're lending in foreign currency. The attractive thing about lending in foreign currency has been that the interest rates for these foreign currencies has been quite low compared to the Kenyan shilling. That has been the attractiveness of it. But the part we don't see, which will come to see in the real life example, is that exchange rates can come back to bite you later on, okay? And then the last is interest rates. The interest rate component of these facilities. Interest rates are also market risk. They also change, and that can also disrupt businesses in terms of their operations. So we also need to factor that in as we look at the overall risk in lending. So those are the risks that are involved. So currency risk basically is when exchange rates fluctuate. There's a normal fluctuation in the market. Would say a 5% fluctuation for any currency would be normal. But when we start seeing fluctuations in excess of 10% in a year, then that becomes volatile. Yeah? That becomes volatile and out of hand. 5% depreciation beginning to end of the year, that would be considered normal. But when it becomes too much, then it gets out of hand, and it's substantial risk is introduced into your lending transactions. Same with interest rates, same kind of thing. I digress here a bit. And I bring to your attention what's happening in the States right now. I think so far about 3 banks have collapsed in the United States. And it's because of interest rate risk. It is purely because of this. And what happens, commercial banks are major holders of government debt, bond holdings. They hold a huge portfolio of bonds, whether they hold to maturity or for their trading book, but they do hold a huge portfolio of bonds. Now, as a result of interest rates increasing, and if you know the relationship between bond rates, bond yields, and their prices, it's an inverse relationship. So as interest rates go up, the value of bonds plummets, okay? And which is what has happened to, I think, those 3-4 banks in the States, where interest rates have shot up from about 0.25% in less than a year. And just this week again, the Fed did another 25 basis point rate hike. Now the Fed funds rate is at 5.25%. LIBOR should be hovering somewhere around there also. So if you're doing any premium, it's based on that, yeah? So they took bonds that were at 1%, 2%. Now rates are at 5%. All those bonds are underwater. The valuation, the mark to market on those bonds, they are bleeding cash, and that's why most of those banks are going under. And the crisis is not over. Even the CEO of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, said, this is just the beginning. So we expect more banks to come to the fore for assistance from the Fed. So interest rates can be a big kicker, especially for banks. When interest rates goes up and the value of bonds then plummets. So we've already seen that in play. So here is a visual, and this one just, picture is worth 1,000 words. We have a graph of the Kenyan shilling to the dollar for the past about 5 years. And you can see, this is 2018. Kenyan shilling was trading at 100, okay? And over the space of 5 short years, yeah, it's a 5-year graph, you can see that. We're now just shy of 140, yeah? Most loans that customers are taking, they're about that duration, 5 years, isn't it, yeah? So you can take a loan here at 100 and say, I'm good. And up to until around beginning of 2022, everything was honky-dory, isn't it, yeah? Everything was good. And in the last year, you get wiped out. Simple. That's currency risk for you in a graph. Yeah? That's how serious it can get. Yeah? The same thing I was talking about. This is the Fed funds rate. This is from the Fed's website. April 2022, the Fed funds rate was at 0.25%. 0.25%. You remember after the global financial crisis, they lowered rates in order to spur economic growth because they wanted now to push as much liquidity into the markets to help companies to grow and start rehiring after the crisis that we had, isn't it, yeah? In 2008, 2009. So they held rates for the longest at 0.25%. And then all of a sudden, things turn around, yeah? Inflation, exactly, yeah. 40-fold, right? Yeah, it's 40-fold. It's 0.25 times 40 times, yeah? US dollar interest rates. Nobody thought this would happen. It has caught almost everybody off guard, yeah? Yeah? And what's the driving force? Even absolutely.
That's why we had those bonds at 1%. Now, yeah, like you said, now price to market, unless now you hold them up to maturity.
There are some bonds that are hold to maturity,
Yeah.
and those you're allowed, the accounting for that is different.
Yeah.
But your trading book has to be marked to market every 30
Yes,
days.
yes.
Some jurisdictions, even every week, you have to mark to market. And that hits your P&L
Yes.
direct. You don't hide it in the hold to maturity book. It shows up front. And that's why banks are collapsing
And I think
because of this.
The other even worse thing is that the guys who had, you see, that money
Yeah.
had been placed over there by, your depositors, and then you put it like that so that you can pay CTC.
Yes, yeah.
Now those guys now
Yeah.
come and say, hey, I need my money because I need to get 5%. Now you have those bonds at
Yeah.
1%.
Yes.
Then you need to pay these guys 5% or they ship
Yes,
out.
so that's the double whammy there because on the one front, you're already losing money on the valuation of those bonds.
Yeah.
Then number two, for the regional banks,
Yes.
the regional banks in the states, the state banks, yeah, people are beginning to say, you're paying me 1% interest,
Yeah.
but I'm getting 5% from a money market fund, so they come and withdraw their money. And that's why you're having kind of, people are saying, I think these regional banks are weak. So then panic sets in and people just say, I think the next one is this one. And you just need a rumor